Alrighty, everyone. It looks like it is now 10:30 and it's time to start our session. My name is Corin and I'm a SEIS user support specialist for the SEIS team. And I just want to welcome everyone to this year's conference. I know it's been a real crazy year to say the least, but I'm glad that I was able to present this year and that we actually held the conference and that we can provide this information to you guys. So again, thank you for being in attendance. Before we actually begin, we're going to cover some a quick Zoom recap real quick, just to cover a few things. So let me go ahead and get that up for you. So real quick, all sessions are actually going to be recorded and posted to the conference website after the conference. The material is also going to be available on the conference website too, so make sure you bookmark that link if you haven't already. As you've noticed, everyone is muted. Uh, I have about 50 minutes for this session, so um, as far as the Q&A goes, I will not be answering any questions live. Uh, if you've noticed, there is a Q&A option on your Zoom toolbar. Feel free to ask any questions via that chat feature. And then I have a panelist that's going to actually be able to go in and answer your questions during the session. So we can answer questions that way as well. Then that Q&A is actually going to be downloaded and sent to everybody in attendance after the conference so that you have a copy of all the questions that were asked and the Q&A. If we have any time afterwards, after the session though, I'll be able to pull some questions at random and answer them live for you guys. Not a problem. We also have closed captioning available by clicking on that CC icon on your Zoom toolbar if you need that as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. And I want to first kind of start talking about the SACE mission and why you're going to even be using SACE. At the end of the day, SACE is an IEP writing tool and a CalPAS reporting tool as well. Its main objective is actually to help you tell the story of the student through the IEP process. Now, with this session, we're not only going to cover how to use SACE step by step, but also some recommended best practices that's actually going to help you to have an accurate and up-to-date electronic paper trail for every student and every IEP that you held in SACE, so it can then accurately be reported to CalPAS. So that's the mission. Let's see. So as a provider, it's really important to have at least a basic understanding of how CalPAS works and how that information is going to be reported. So right now, special education data is going to be reported directly to CalPAS through SACE. So uh, when you enter information into the IEP, it's directly compared to the data that's going to be submitted to the SIS, that's the student information system to CalPAS. So this information needs to match. So it's super important that when you're entering that IEP information, it is verified before it is affirmed. You want to make sure first that you're actually on the correct student. You want to also make sure your meeting type and your meeting dates are correct. And we'll talk more and more about this. It's really important. So you'll probably hear me say it over and over again, but it's okay. Just remember, it's super important. Two very important reporting dates that you do need to be made aware of is going to be the fall census date, and that's going to be the first Wednesday in October. This is actually going to include all transactions between 7/1 and the census date. Now, we'll actually talk about and cover what transactions are in a moment, so don't fret on that. Um, the second big one is going to be, or reporting that I should say, is going to be the end of year, the June 30th report. That report is going to pull in and include all transactions between 7/1 and 6/30 of that school year. Now you're probably thinking like, okay, so what's this transactional reporting you speak of? Like, what is going on? Well, a transaction is actually going to be created when an IEP is affirmed, when a student is exited, when a student's status is changed to D&Q or not providing services, and when a student's plan type is actually changed to 300 for that pending initial eval. A transaction is also going to be created when you hold an amendment and you update specific fields. So it's super important that as a case manager, you affirm those IEPs and amendments as soon as those meetings are completed, and you need to be submitting any student change requests as soon as eligibility has been determined or if that student is exited. Because at the end of the day, this is how we collect that information that you're entering into the IEP, so it can be reported to CalPADS. Real quick, we'll talk about a few reportable amendment fields. So let's say you hold an amendment, right, for the IEP that you held, and you update any of these bullet pointed fields. During that amendment, it's going to create a transaction. So let's say, for example, you go in and update the disability one or services. CalPADS wants to know that information that is changing. So we create a transaction when you hold an amendment, you update any of these fields that you see here. So we pretty much you just pretty much received a crash course on CalPADS reporting, what transactional reporting actually is, and how a transaction is created. So now we'll move on and talk a little bit more about you as a provider. So you guys are going to be actually provided with a provider level account, and with that account, you only have access to the students that are assigned to you. You are also provided what we call a home district, but you can also be shared with any district within the SELPA, so you can have any students from different districts as long as they're within that same SELPA umbrella. As a provider, your main job is to make sure that you're updating your progress on the goals in a timely manner, so that that case manager can go in and affirm and attest within whatever recommended timelines they set. And as for case managers, their job is pretty much to manage the entire IEP team. They need to communicate with the team so that they are aware of any timelines for that IEP, and they're also responsible for affirming and attesting any IEPs, amendments, and progress reports. On top of that, managing the IEP is the main objective, but you also will be sending a myriad of different requests to your district, and we'll cover that shortly. But real quick, these bullet points down at the bottom, let's say you need to add a student to your caseload. Well, in SEIS, you would fill out what we call a student add form request. And let's say, for example, you need to have a student removed, you would then fill out a student change form. Even if you need to have the student's eligibility updated or to have a student exited, all this stuff is going to be done through a request. And we're actually going to move on and talk a little bit about requests. So as a provider level user, on your home page, you have what you see here on the screen. It's a report, or I should say a status or a notification called request submitted to the district. So when you fill out an add student request or a student change form, you can review your request from your homepage. And we'll go in and review each one of these, like what an exit request is and student record changes and stuff. So we'll talk about that. So let's say, for example, you start providing services to a new student, but the student isn't on your caseload. So in SEIS, what you're going to do is on that navigation bar, click on the student section, and then you'll click on add student form link. After you click on that link, you'll be able to actually fill out that form that you see there on the screen with the student's information, and then hit the submit button. That's pretty easy. That request is actually then going to be sent over to your district and or SELPA, because both level users can process that request for you. And on this screenshot, the first screenshot to the left below is where you can go and actually, again, check out your requests for that add request. To the right, that screenshot is basically just where you can look at the different statuses for each student that you might have sent the add request out for. So I didn't really have a screenshot of all the information, but the most important on that screenshot is the status. So you can see, like, I sent a request in for a student to be added. Christy declined it. I still have like 3 others that's still pending. And then I have one that's completed. So really important. You can always go in and take a look at what you already submitted. Now, keep in mind, there may actually be a delay with the add request being fulfilled, as that record may actually reside in a different district and must be transferred first before it can be added to your caseload. So do keep in mind of that. Double check your request, because the district or SELPA can leave comments on those requests as well. All right, so let's say, for example, the student has been added to your caseload. Parent consent has been received for that initial eval. There's actually a few things that needs to happen to get that student reported correctly. One is that meeting type needs to be updated to the pending initial eval to, basically update everybody that the student is pending initial eval. That plan type, same thing, needs to be updated to a pending initial eval. And again, since that parent consent was received, this is where the SSID can be requested by your district. So if you go in and it's not an SSID, just notify your district so they can get that SSID and put it into the record for you or provide it to you. With this information, the system will then create a pending 300 reportable transaction so your district can report that student and that pending status. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, you need to have a student removed from your caseload. You're no longer providing services for whatever reason. He shouldn't be on your caseload anymore, right? So same deal. In SEIS, you just click on the student section in that upper navigation bar. And then instead, you're going to click on the student change form link. Uh, from there, you just select the student. You'll select the request that you see on screen in that screenshot. Student should not be on my caseload, and then leave any comments on why the student shouldn't be on your caseload, and then hit that submit request button. So let's say the student exited or has been transferred. Same deal, you're still going to fill out the student change form, but that select request is going to be different depending on the situation. So let's say you find out the student moved, right, and they're going to be attending in a different district or SELPA. For that select request, this time you're going to select the appropriate answer. So student has moved to a different district and or SELPA, you would then actually enter the exit date and exit reason if you have that information, and then leave a comment if needed, and then hit submit request. All righty, so this is a good question. What to do with no-show? So we actually got some information from CalPass because a lot of people were asking questions about this one. So I'm gonna read this verbatim, straight up how it is. Basically, if a student is a no-show at the beginning of the year, it basically needs to be investigated to determine if the student is going to return or not. At the end of that investigation, the student change form can be submitted to alert your district of the no-show. Now, you do have to keep in mind your district or your SELPA might have their own procedures in line to determine what information that needs to be submitted with that change request. So make sure you have an understanding of your local policies and procedures on the matter. If the exit date and reason is determined for that select request, when you fill out that student change form, it should be exit the student from special education. If the exit date and the exit reason are not determined, then that select request should be other, and then you can enter any comments about this, the student and or the situation. All right, so you've held that initial IEP. You gotten the results. Now the student status needs to be updated like immediately, like ASAP. There's no waiting on this. Let's say, for example, the assessment was held and the student qualified. Well, first thing that you're going to need to do is make sure that plan type is updated to reflect that that student is eligible and now in an IEP. So you would, change it to a 100, and then you would submit the student change form request, like in that screenshot, and that select request should be change eligibility status of the pending student. And then you'll choose in that next drop down, determine eligible, will receive services. Let's say, for example, the assessment was held and the student did not qualify or just will simply not be on IEP. Again, student's plan type should reflect what was determined at that meeting. So it should be updated to a 700, 800, or 900, depending on the situation. And then you will submit that student change form request to have the student DNQ'd, not providing services. What if the student moved? Now this happens a lot. If the student moves, then the student still should be reported to CalPAS in that pending 300 status. So you would not be changing the plan type. Instead, for that select request, you're going to choose that last option in that screenshot, assessment not completed, and that's going to send that request to your district, and your district can then remove that student from your caseload. All right, so this is a really good question. What do you do, or where do you document a student's, address? Because most of the time, most providers receive that notice of the student's address being changed before the district, but it's super important to submit a student change form request to notify the district of that address, because most districts utilize the SEIS nightly integration feature, which is actually going to update the student's address based on what they have in the SIS, that's the student information system. So let's say, for example, if the address is updated in SEIS, but not in the SIS, and you come back the next day and you're like, whoa, wait, hold on, what happened to the address? I changed, reverted. Well, it's going to be overridden that night. So definitely submit the address rechanges uh, for the student so that your district is aware and they can update it in their system, and then it'll update SACE automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. All right. So we do got some new validations in place as well. A provider will no longer be able to add an amendment unless an IEP transaction exists in your district. So let's say, for example, you go and you try to add an amendment. You'll get a prompt saying, hey, a transaction doesn't exist in your district. You'll get an option. The option one is to submit a student change form, as you see here in this screenshot, or the other option is to cancel. But you want to go ahead and hit that submit student change form button. And then for that select request, you want to change it to, if it's not already selected, change it to manage IEP/CalPAS data. And then as you see in the comments, just explain the situation. You're unable to add an amendment to the IEP data, blah, blah, blah. An IEP transaction needs to be created. This notice can also be used though if you just navigate to the student change form and select it. It can also be used if you, for some reason, accidentally affirm an IEP with the incorrect meeting date or the meeting type, or for any other IEP related questions. You can also use that as well. So just to recap real quick, we basically covered submitting requests to the district, using the student add form and the student change form, and actually how to check on the status of those requests, which can all be done from the homepage. So what we're going to do now is actually look at some other important homepage notices, one being the students homepage notice. Now, this one is really important. Students in this section uh, will display the number of eligible and pending students. It's super important to actually keep your eye on the pending students, because the only students that should be in this pending status are students that have not yet had an initial IEP. So they should always be in pending status. And actually, we're going to look at an example of what I mean. So for example, you see in those highlighted columns in this screenshot below, the plan type uh, is selected as a 900. So, and the student is still in the pending status, because this is, you click on the pending students notice, it'll take you to this page. But look at the first student there. The student is has a plan type of 900. So that means you held the initial, you actually went in and updated the plan type to reflect what was found out about that student at that meeting, but you haven't yet submitted that student change form to have that student status updated or changed to DNQ not providing services. Let's look at the next student, for example. The plan type was updated to a 100, so it was determined at that initial eval meeting that the student, qualified for service, but the student is still in pending. So there's two things wrong with this one. For one, the IEP hasn't been affirmed because the student is still in pending. You cannot affirm um, an IEP if the student is still in pending. And two, the student hasn't had their eligibility updated. So it's very important uh, to use this notice, because it kind of keeps you on your toes. Every student in here should be or should have a plan type of 300 on that pending. So always take a look at that, just to make sure you're moving everything along just right. Because at the end of the day, remember, transactions are created when the meetings are affirmed and statuses are updated, as far as like DNQs and stuff. Another very important section is the follow-up section. This is actually going to help you make sure you didn't forget to do something, like such as affirm. So like, for example, you have the notice for unaffirmed IEPs, unaffirmed amendments, unassigned IEPs, unsigned amendments, which is a newer notice on there, and the electronic signatures was also another newer um, section on the follow-up. Now, real quick, we'll just cover up just a few of them. But for the unaffirmed IEPs, a student's actually going to pull into this notice based on the IEP date. If the IEP date on the future is after the IEP date on the current IEP. So you went in, you updated the future. It hasn't yet been affirmed because the current IEP date is different from the future. So definitely use this notice to go in and make sure you're affirming IEP meetings. Unaffirmed amendments, same deal. You created an amendment, it just hasn't been affirmed. Unassigned IEPs. So during that affirm process, you went in, you affirmed it, but you selected no for parent signature. So the student's going to pull into that. On that one, you can go to the current IEP once you've gathered the signature and just change that no to a yes. And we'll cover that soon. Unassigned amendment, same deal. Um, you just selected no for parent signature. And then electronic signatures, if an e-signature package is actually created and sent, the notice will display on the status of that package for that student on this page. And that's very important as well. So do keep in mind, use this follow-up notice to make sure you are in line with everything pretty much. Okay, so next is the CalPAS alerts page. And this one is gonna pretty much pull in for are pretty much used for preschool program setting and the program setting. So let's say, for example, you held an IEP and you know that the student's program setting will be changing within a few months or even within the duration of that IEP. On the educational setting offer a fate page, you can actually enter a start date for that program setting change. Students will display on this notification 30 days before the projected start date and will be removed automatically 14 days after that projected start date. The main purpose of this notice is for the case manager to create an amendment. It's like a reminder to go in and create an amendment to document that program settings change to be submitted to CalPAS because that's going to create a transaction. That information needs to be submitted to CalPAS. All right, so we got some meeting alerts. Meeting alerts actually keep you on your toes for upcoming meetings. As you see on the screen here, you can see your upcoming and any past due meetings for different types of meetings, and we'll quickly go over those as well. So these alerts are actually generated from the data entered onto the student record or any IEP forms, such as like the information and eligibility form. You have next triennial, or next annual and triennial. That's, everyone knows that one actually pulls from the next annual, and eval date fields on the information eligibility form. Uh, so whatever you put in there, it'll pull into students. So as a reminder for those meetings. For the initial eval, it's basically a 60-day projection from the consent date. So it's just a reminder saying, hey, you need to hold this initial eval within 60 days of receiving parent consent. The interim placement and 30-day reviews. Now this one just went through some changes recently, but basically it displays any student that transferred from outside the SELPA within the last 30 days. This student is going to be removed from the notice automatically 14 days after the day-to-day projection. Real quick, we get a lot of questions on this one because providers are like, hey, I held this meeting already, but this notice is still here. Not to worry. On there, it will fall off on the negative 14 day under that days until overdue column. If you look on that report, automatically will fall off. Okay, cool. Students turning 3, obviously that's for students who are going to be turning 3. They'll pull in within 30 days of them turning that age. You have the notice for infant initial evals and 6-month reviews as well. All right, next we're gonna talk about goal banks and getting into more of the IEP portion of things. We're gonna talk about what goal banks are, and how to use them. So, as a provider level user, you can create what we call a personal goal bank. Now, goals in your personal goal bank can actually be imported into a student's IEP, and we'll go over that shortly. The whole process. Uh, so let's say you find yourself like typing out similar goals over and over again, or you have a good one that you're like, oh man, that was a good goal. I'm gonna save that goal. Well, it's a good idea to actually add it to your goal bank. What you can do first is create what we call a focus area. It's kind of just like a folder where you can actually organize your goals. Once you do that, you can click the add goal button as you see there in the screen. And then you can enter any information for that goal, or you can use that template to ensure that template link there to ensure that all the areas of that goal is actually addressed. We also offer a goal library. Each goal bank is created and managed by the goal author. So there's different people who've provided goal banks. So we at SEIS cannot edit any of those goals within that goal bank without the consent of the goal author. So there's a whole bunch of goal banks you guys can actually go through and use. Do keep in mind when you actually add a goal to your goal bank, a copy of that goal is actually sent to the SELPA. Now, the SELPA can actually review and approve that goal. It can be actually added to the teacher generated goals goal bank. That goal bank is actually going to house and consist of all the goals created and approved within your SELPA. So you can kind of get like SELPA famous. So yeah, if you get that good goal and they review it, it can be added to that bank. You also have access to like other statewide teacher generated goal banks as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about the student record and like how to access it and its different pages and its overall usage. So on the SACE navigation bar, you can actually click on the students and then from there click on student IEPs. And then you're going to be direct to where you can actually access the student record, IEPs, progress reports, and amendments as you see here on the screen. Uh, so for the sake of time, we'll just talk quickly about just the student record. If you want to access the student record, you can click on that triangle icon with the exclamation mark in the middle, and it's actually going to take you to the CalPAD student page. Now, the CalPAD student page actually stores all CalPAD's fields, other than like services and stuff. And we'll talk about that in a second. When an IEP is affirmed, it goes through what we call a CalPAS error check just to make sure there aren't any errors. We validate certain fields to make sure information is accurate. To view any CalPAS errors, you can actually check that, click that error check button that you see there, and it'll highlight all the fields that might have any errors. So let's take a look real quick at this screenshot here. Under where it says like save, print, and error check, at that bottom is where you can navigate through the student record. So let's say right now we're on the CalPAS student page. I'm going to click in that drop down and I'm going to navigate and I'm going to select the CalPAS services page, right? Now the CalPAS services page displays all the services for the student. This page is also linked to the services page on the future IEP. On here, pretty much, you have some options for different services. You have the ability to mark them do not report. So let's say, for example, you might have duplicate services on there. CalPAS only wants one service with the same service code and provider and location. So one of them has to be marked do not report. You can check that box, mark do not report on one of them. However, you want to refer to your district to determine which one should not be reported. You also have an option on there, do not print. If you select that button, um, basically it just not doesn't pull into the affirmed IAP or any paperwork that you print on. Real quick, if you look under where it says add service, that little highlighted button right there, you can actually reorganize or relist your services by like grabbing and dragging and dropping your services in whichever way you want them to display. Just a quick tip. So in that pages drop down, we're gonna go and we're gonna move on to notes and attachments. On this page, basically you can add, enter different add alerts, uploading the attachments that might be unrelated to the IEP and any additional notes. So we pretty much covered the most important aspects of the student record. There's other things in that drop down that you can take advantage of. Feel free to, familiarize yourself with that on your free time. Next, we're going to talk about the IEP. We're going to dive right into the future. So on the future IEP, well, first, again, you can access the future IEP, remember, from in the SACE navigation bar by clicking on students and the student IEP page, and then you will click the edit icon for that student. On the future IEP, you can actually edit IEP forms. You can click that printer icon to actually print that individual form. Your district or SOPA might actually have that form in Spanish, so you'll bring up print options that you can select Spanish forms. The new feature is a actual draft watermark feature where you can actually put a watermark on that printed version of the IEP form. And then you also have the ability to check specific forms and hit that print selected button that you see there on that screenshot. You also have the ability to generate an e-signature package on the future IEP here. You also have the ability to preview. Now, this preview, real quick, I just want to spend a quick second on this one. If for any reason you are having any issues printing, or say printing goes down, you can actually click on this hourglass, or this magnifying glass under that preview column, and that's going to bring up the same PDF, and you can like right click and download it as well. From the future, you can also click on attachments to add any documents there as well, and you can leave comments on the future as well. So let's talk about managing goals briefly. Um, Super important. A lot of people don't know this, but you see that like in that first screenshot where it says goal description, that is actually a goal title field, and that's going to actually help you manage your goals. And I'm going to explain. When a goal is being projected for the next year, you can enter like the word projected, for example, into that goal title field. Once that goal is approved at that meeting, you can actually edit that title, entering or updating that text to current. And then after that annual review has been completed, you can edit the title, reviewed, or affirm after, or delete after affirm. So this way you can kind of easily see the status of the goals and which goals should be deleted after the IEP has been affirmed. So definitely take a note of that goal title, because that is not printed on any IEP form. So it's just a title to help you remember. Goals can also be transferred from your personal goal bank, or they can be transferred uh, from the goal library into a goal. And how you can do that is when you're on that goal page, you can click that button that says choose goal there in that screenshot to the right. You'll then select what goal bank you want to choose from or browse, and then select that goal and any objectives that you might want to add into that goal. And then there's a copy and paste feature that you can use. So basically, you can import goals from your personal library and any goal bank in the goal bank library into the student's IEP. Goals can also be exported from an IEP into your personal goal bank. So let's say you spend a lot of time on your IEP and or on your goals, and you're like, man, that's a good goal. I'm gonna save that. Or you might see somebody else's goal. You're like, oh, that was a good goal. Well, you can, add it to your goal bank by clicking on that add to my goals button there. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the current IEP. Basically, when you affirm the future, it becomes an exact replica. Basically, the current IEP is a hard copy of what the parent received. All IEP forms that were selected during the IEP process will display in bold. So make sure you're selecting what forms you use when you go through the affirm process. If the signature is obtained after the meeting has been affirmed, you can actually have it updated here in that screenshot. It says signature yes and no. You can just change that no to a yes once you've obtained its parent signature. And you can also use the e-signature package feature on the current IP to obtain signatures if you need to. Next, on that current IEP, you can actually click on the amendment tab to create an amendment for the following reasons. Say you need to hold a continuation meeting, or you need to make a change to the IEP, or any correction due to clerical errors or whatnot. You can do this via an amendment. Uh, as IEPs are affirmed, that student's IP history list is going to grow. You can actually review this information from the historical IEP page by clicking on that view and print icon next to that student's on the student IEP page. Next, we'll just briefly go over progress reports and how to update progress on goals as well. So from that SEIS navigation bar, again, you will click on student IEPs, and then you will click on that right progress icon that you see highlighted under that progress report icon. You can also, if you want to view any affirmed progress reports or previously affirmed progress reports, I should say, you can click on that folder icon to the right of it. Now, let's say I click on that right icon, I'll be directed to the progress report summary page. Here is where I can update progress on goals. I can affirm progress reports. I can print any historical progress reports if for some reason I need to do that. And you can also see when the last progress report was actually affirmed. If you look under all these buttons on that screenshot, it says last affirmed progress report. So you can know when the last progress report was affirmed. So pretty cool. Let's actually look at writing some progress on some goals. So to write progress on goals, first I'm going to check the goal and then click on that write progress on select the goals button there. Then I'm going to be directed to this page as you see in the screenshot. Here, there's basically three standard progress reports fields and a annual review field. Now, if your district requires additional progress to be written, then you can click on that add progress button and or progress report button, and it's going to add another field for you to add more information in. Once progress has been written, what you want to do as a provider is click that ready for PR, ready for progress report, yes, to let the case manager basically know that they are ready. So as a case manager, you guys need to be making sure that you're waiting until all of your progress reports say yes on them. And if they don't, then you got to reach out to your provider just to see what's taking so long or to get them to make sure they make their updates on that as well. Only the goals that have yes in that uh, ready for progress report column is going to pull into that affirmed progress report. So definitely make sure you everything is yes in that column before you actually push that affirmative test button. Next, we'll talk about printing, some progress reports. So to print, it's in the same area. You will just click on print affirm progress reports button that you see there on the screen. And then if you want, you can also print from that summary page any previously, um, or historical, I should say, progress reports. All right, so let's talk a little bit about bulk printing. We get a lot of questions about, I want to, bulk print a specific IEP form for all the students on my caseload. So we're going to kind of cover first, like some different things that you can print. You can bulk print IEP forms, IFSP forms, and progress reports. So what you would do, you would navigate on your SEIS navigation bar is actually click on searches and then click on new search. If you want have a specific students in mind, you can click the checkbox next to each specific student. Otherwise, if you don't select any students, it'll just, you're basically selecting all the students that you have on your caseload. Then if you can see on that screenshot there, you can actually, in that print drop down, you can change it to like, if you want to bulk print IEP forms, we'll use that as an example actually. Let's see. Do keep in mind for like bulk printing, IEP forms actually pulls in information that's on the future IEP or IFSP forms. And for progress reports, you should select that. It actually bulk prints the last affirmed progress report. So do keep that in mind. So after you've selected your students or determine what you want to select, you can see the next screenshot below that. You can select, let's say, for example, we select the IP forms. You can select the form, and then under that acknowledgement section, just verify those are the students you want to print the IP form for, and then hit submit. That's it. So the Message Center has actually grown in usage over especially the last few months. So we're going to kind of go over how to access the Message Center. First and foremost, in the upper right-hand corner of SEIS, you have these icons where you can click on that envelope icon or the mail icon, we call it, to check your mail pretty much. Now, if you have any unread messages or red alert with that number of unread messages will display on the top of that. So let's say we click on it and we go into it. We're gonna get sent to our inbox, right? Just like like Outlook or whatnot, but in SEIS. From here, you can actually send a new message, check your sent mail, check any deleted mail, and create any message templates that you might have like stored for the IEP team. Let's say we go in and start a new message. We want to email someone. Well, first and foremost, you can actually email anyone in your SOPA. So keep that in mind. You can just click that next in that to section, hit that plus button there. It'll pull up this menu. You can search for who you want and add multiple users to that email. So you can really easily email your IEP team for any student on your caseload, keep them updated on whatever information you want to. So definitely use that. I know SEIS, we actually send a lot of our updates to you guys now, like such as like system updates and stuff through the Message Center. So definitely check your mail there as well. And I know e-signature emails go through it there as well as far as like notifications. So definitely check that on a daily basis. Next, we'll talk about the recycling bin. So that recycling bin is the icon to the right of the mail icon. And to access that recycling bin, just click on it. Boom, super easy. Now, any items that, or most items, I should say, that are deleted via that trash can icon or that delete icon are sent to recycling bin. They actually remain in there for 7 days. If you are the person that deleted it, you must be the person that restores it, and you can restore it by clicking on that circular arrow that you see there in that screenshot at the bottom, and that will be restored. Keep in mind, though, however, if you affirm something after you deleted something, that is going to be permanently deleted. Whatever you deleted is going to be permanently deleted if you affirm. Next is our help center. Really want to go over this because it is definitely an asset. Um, this is where we keep all of our FAQs, and it's kind of like it's like asked in like a question. We kind of organize our FAQs in like a question type way, and it gives you the answer. We have training materials and training videos as well, which is all a great resource to everybody, to all you guys, to if you're a regular provider to a SELPA level user. Definitely very good to use and be familiarized with. We keep this information in here updated as much as possible. So definitely check that all the time. Also, you have the ability to contact us. Contact us at the SEIS Help Desk by clicking on that Contact Help Desk form. That will create a ticket for us to review if you need any help. So definitely make sure when you fill out that Help Desk contact form, include all the information that you need. Try not to include students like personal information like their first and last name. We just want like that SACE ID or SSID, um, just so we can keep that information private. So do keep that in mind. Let's see. So that's all I got, guys. That's the end of that's it for the presentation or the session anyways. And I guess we'll go ahead and open up some QA real quick and see what we got at random, see what questions I can answer at random for you guys. Give me a quick second. Let's see what we got. As soon as I find my Q&A. All right, so we have a question. Let's see. Do goals stay with you if you move districts? Yes, goals do stay with you if you move districts. I mean, they stay on the student record if that's what you're asking. If you want a little bit more clarification on that, please send us an email into the help desk. But yes, they do physically stay on the IEP. All right, let's see. Joni Beach, let's see. So I do not see an option for watermark. Yes, there is. So let's say, for example, you are on a student's IEP. What you want to do is on the future, click on, like, let's say the information eligibility page, click on that printer icon. Don't go into the form, but click on the printer icon on the outside, and that's going to bring up your print options. You should see the option to select a watermark there. Let's see what the next question we got is. Let's see. All right, so not clear on if or what we mean if let's see, not clear on what you mean when you say an amendment cannot be added if a transaction has not been created. All right, so remember, so a student transfers into your district. Uh, Basically, for reporting purposes, a transaction needs to be created for you to hold that amendment. So that is something that your district should be doing, is creating a transaction. So they might have forgot or and just added the student to your caseload real quick. Or, for example, you might have actually updated the meeting date on the future IEP and then went to try to add an amendment. If you do that, the validation is going to catch you as well, because you're not going to have a transaction in your district for that meeting date that you changed on the future IEP. So for that one, if you guys need further clarification on that one, please, please, please reach out to the help desk. We can provide some examples for you guys as well on that note. All right, so that the record. So let's say Lori. So yeah, this information has been recorded. It will be actually provided on the conference website after the conference. So we have to, download all the session video, recordings and upload it there. So it'll be some time after the session has conference has ended. Let's see here. And Connie, is that all I got for questions? Let's see. So on e-signatures, so from Joyce, on e-signatures, if you add a person, will they be able to sign if they were not added initially? Well, Joyce, you know what? Yes, they can. Actually, I will be covering e-signature at 3:30. So join my session. I will be going through the entire e-signature process step by step. I'll be providing tips and tricks and answering the most common questions. And with that one, I'll be a little bit more slower on the presentation, so you guys have a clear understanding of how to use it. So definitely attend that session at 3:30. Say sign e-signature. All right, please define the word transaction, Julie. Okay, so when you hold an IEP and you affirm that IEP or that amendment that is going to create a transaction. A transaction is basically all the information that you input into the IEP, and it's going to capture it like a snapshot, and we call it a transaction, like a receipt. Okay. So again, you hold an IEP meeting, you affirm it, you submit a student change form that has a student D and Q. All those things are going to create what we call a transaction. It's basically a snapshot of that information, what was held at the IEP, and then that is then going to be submitted to CalPADS. So Joan, each time we go into progress and write an update, we press affirm. No. So when you go in and update your progress as a provider, all you want to do is make, and if you're done with your portion, just change that ready for progress button to yes, and then your case manager is going to make sure all the goals and stuff have been updated and are ready, and then they can press the affirm button once all those are updated to ready for progress reports. Okay. As far as like if you guys have any questions about transactions being created, it's not so much anything that you need to be specifically worried about. However, just know when you are, it's important that you are affirming the information correctly, the correct meeting date, the correct meeting type. That stuff is going to create a transaction to be reported to CalPADS. That's pretty much it, guys. So that's all the time I have for the day, or for right now, today's session. Thank you for joining today's session. Again, uh, if you have any questions regarding this session, please feel free to email us at the say support at SJCOE or contact the help desk at any time. We're here for you guys, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. So again, continue to enjoy the rest of the sessions for this morning and for this year's conference. You guys have a good one. Bye bye.